Welcome to the South Seas ABE room, where you're going to be hearing a talk on 1,000 Ways to Die in Mobile Oauth, presented by Yuan, Yutong, and Eric. Before we begin, a couple quick notes. In the business hall in Bayside AB, that's the big vendor room, all kinds of great things to come and see there, terrific vendors. There'll also be a welcome reception from 5:30 until 7 tonight. The Black Hat Arsenal is on in the Palm Foyer on level 3. That's just around the corner from here, I believe. And also the Pony Awards are happening tonight in the Mandalay Bay BCD room. I think that's just the next one over at 6:30 tonight. And also thanks to everybody for putting your phones on vibrate so we don't interrupt the talk. And that's it, so please go ahead.
Hello. Okay. So, hi everyone, this is Yutong. We're gonna bring you today is like 1,000 Ways to Die in Mobile Oauth. So, sitting on my left side is Yuan, and on my right is Eric. Shuo, who is like sitting in the audience seat, is also here today. Robert and Patrick are now with us today. Me and Yuan are gonna be the major speaker for this talk. And okay, so we're going to start to share with you like how we broke a lot of our stuff. So we know this is a black hat, so we don't want to like save all the goodies in the like very end, and we're going to show you guys all these demos like right now. Okay. So the first one is actually how we like break authentication in Instagram. We found this bug or vulnerability in Instagram like two years ago, and they already fixed it. So like for the demo, we use a different app. Like Wish is also a very popular app in mobile app for like, shopping. It's like top in the Android app store, and this attack is still not fixed in Wish right now. So you can see an attacker can log into Wish using attacker's account. And this is like attacker's account. So like attacker creates another app which is like malicious. It gains a legitimate user like a victim Bob's Facebook access token. When Bob logins like attacker's malicious account, like attacker can get this access token from Bob. Yeah, what attacker does here is attacker still log into Wish with attacker's own Facebook account, like same credential. But when attacker click on OK, it actually attacker intercepts a request come back from Facebook. Attacker exchanges the access token which belongs to the attacker to Bob's access token. Like that's happening in the background. And now attacker actually log into Bob's Wish account. That's the first demo. Second demo is if you use OAuth before, you all know there is a permission page, which is a consent page, and we found like Tencent, which is like very very famous provider in China. Like in their mobile flow, they don't have this consent page. So here we show like this user's account management page. It indicates like this user has not authorized any permission, like any app at all. So, but when user trying to log in application with their Tencent account, like after enter their the credential, yeah, the user actually directly log in. So there is no consent page, even though like their user never authorized this app ever before, and this like open like you can like basically the app can ask any permission they want, like all the permission they can have from Tencent, and like without notify the user. So the user won't know without like the consent, and like the app can get every permission. And what is interesting is like actually like for Tencent, the mobile app, the full mobile version, they do have a consent page, but for the mobile, they don't.
We have learned how the attackers can log into the benign user's account. Now let's see how benign user can be tricked into logging to attacker's account. Here we present a demo which shows how which use autocode login with GitHub. So first, the attacker gets into autocode page and click login with GitHub. The attacker will input his username and password for GitHub so that he will get authorization token from GitHub. This token is similar as a session token. But instead of continuing to log in, the attacker saves this code and actually embed the code into a malicious link. Then, when the benign user is tricked to click on the link, the benign user is sending a request including the code which points to attacker's account. Because autocode don't check who is this user, they will just use the authorization code to represent which user it is. So then, benign user is logged into attacker's account. This attack could have very severe consequence. It's a standard login CSF attack. So if this app is associated with any payment options, for example, the benign user might just add their bank account into the app and lost money. The last demo we're going to show is how we break into Facebook authentication. So here we have one attacker which follow all Facebook OAuth flow legitimately. So the attacker implement Facebook OAuth inside the web view. Then the attacker will be able to get the cookie from Facebook. We will talk about more details about this, but remember that getting cookies from WebView is a feature supported by Android and iOS. And this feature has lots of legitimate usages. That's why it's not so easy to fix this problem. So we have said, after user login with Facebook, the attacker, the malicious app, which embeds WebView, will be able to get the long-term cookie from Facebook. You can see, like these are the cookies that Facebook is using. It's a long-time cookie, so it will stay alive for a long time. After getting the cookie, the attacker can just set the cookie and apply the cookie to log into user's Facebook account. Now, all the information and the whole account is in the control of the attacker. These 4 demos are just the tip of iceberg. In fact, the problem with Oauth is a very pervasive problem. In 2014, we have started the Oauth usage. We found that 60% of 200 Android and iOS OAuth applications are implemented incorrectly. Facebook, Twitter, Evernote, Pinterest, Instagram, this is just a few victims that could suffer from these attacks. We have a really long list to go. Now, after 2 years, when we look back at these problems, we found that these problems are not fixed, and there are more new attacks with OAuth. And you might wonder, how bad are these attacks? Like you have already seen some flavor in the demo that these attacks have very severe consequences. The attacker can impersonate a legitimate service, like Pinterest. Attacker will also be able to access all user content inside services. Attackers can steal Facebook cookies. Attackers can do login CSRF. In the worst case, attacker can get full account compromised. They can access all the information and control the whole account. You might wonder, why can't developers use Oauth securely? Why do they make so many mistakes? There are several reasons. And most of the reasons are very pervasive. First, there's a widely confusion between authorization and authentication. Developers misunderstood the security implication, the difference between the two concepts. Second, developers don't know who to trust. They don't know whether to trust the client. They don't know how should they protect their secret information. Third, Oauth spec is really broad and confusing for normal average developers. For example, I wonder who have read 71 pages for Oauth just for threat model for Oauth 2.0. Also, since Oauth involves 3 parties, it's very important for all the multi-parties to collaborate together to build a secure authentication and authorization. Finally, Oauth spec is majorly written for web applications, not for mobile apps. So in this talk, we choose 8 vulnerabilities to discuss and share with you our understandings about how to do Oauth security.
Yeah, okay, so we talk about a lot of stuff. Now we take a step back. So I want to talk about more detail. First question is what is Oauth? So I think a lot of you already use Oauth before, and even you haven't, probably you should do it now, because when you're busy in catching all the Pokemons, when you sign up with Oauth. That's Google's account. And when you use a lot of you almost always see login with Facebook. So that's Oauth as well. So Oauth is actually a protocol for authorization. There are 3 parties involved in this process. The first one is end user, the user who we also say is resources owner, who actually owns the resources. And the second one is a service provider who actually store or controls user's resources where user has. And the third one is a reliant party who won't get the resources from the user. So when we say authorization is, you can think about user is a resource owner and the service provider is a bank. And it stores all the resources user own. User is basically giving the permission, which you can think about is a key to the resources to the reliant party to access behavior of user to get the protected resources. Just think about Facebook is a bank of all the cat pictures, user own. And this is a brief history of Oauth. So Oauth 1 came out from 2007, and it took around 3 years to become standardized. And Oauth 2 came out 2 years later in 2012. So when we say Oauth 2, people sometimes think Oauth 2 is an improved version of Oauth 1, but basically, they are actually separate. They come with separate people made the draft, and they are very different. So in Oauth 2, there are in the RFC, it officially defines 4 kind of grant type. It's how this flow can be established. The first one is implicit flow grant. The second one is authorization code grant, and there are resource owner password credential grant and client credential grant. So the first 2 are for Oauth 2 are used majority. And we're gonna focus on these 2 grant type or flow in this talk. So okay, let's start with Oauth 1. So if you are an Oauth 1 developer and you are like registering your application in Oauth 1 service provider, this is account or application setting page you're gonna see. So the most important two value here are the first one is consumer key, which application key, and the second one is a consumer secret, which also called API secret. So during this flow, there are, like as we said before, are three participants: user, service provider, and relying party. At the very beginning, relying party gonna ask to want to send a request to service provider to say, this is my application ID, and I want to access all these kind of resources of this user. So this request, so the square parenthesis means like the request actually is signed by the application secret we talked about before. The service provider gonna verify this the signature, and after that, service provider sent a request token back to the relying party. So what then the relying party actually going to redirect the request token with redirect callback URL, redirect URL to the user and redirect to the service party to gain the permissions. From the users gonna see this page from the service provider to this app. It actually basically asks user whether they want to authorize this relying party application to access certain permission. And once user click on authorize this app, the request token will redirect back to the callback URL relying party provided. And then relying party can sign the signed version of the request token to the service provider. Service provider going to return back an access token, which is like the relying party actually can able to access the protected resources. And when relying party access the resources, you need to send the access token as well. So how to know like the relying party is the one user grant permission to, how to verify the identity of the relying party? This is very simple in the Oauth 1 model, because every time when relying party sends a token to the service provider, it has to be signed with its secret. And the secret is stored in relying party's web server, so it's only known between service provider and relying party. And now we come to our first vulnerability. What if the secret is now stored in securely in a web server? In a lot of mobile case, like relying party is actually using a mobile application or mobile client, and to simplify the flow and simplify the work, they store the secret in the mobile application directly. And then the step 7, when they sign access token, it cannot be trusted, since the secret is in the application. So what we did there is we have a pen trace application, and we decompile the application. It's now very hard to find the Oauth secret, since like you can just search secret, and this is here. It's the actual code. And once you have the secret, you can pretend to be pen trace. So what's the impact? Malicious app can impersonate a legit application, and it just broke the Oauth 1 authorization model. So we when we found this issue, there are like two well-known applications impact. One is Cora, one is Pinterest. And they after we notify this to company, and they both revoke their secret immediately. And Cora replied to us, and they just at that time they they make their Twitter login non-functional. And right now when we check, both applications no longer use Twitter login anymore. So to do it right, just don't store any secret in the mobile application. Very simple. And after Oauth 1, and the author of Oauth 1 find some issue, and they have a approved version, which called Oauth 1.0a. And what is added over there is a verifier. So this verifier in the step 4 not only the request token, but also a verifier going to redirect, send back to the relying party. Relying party need to sign the verifier with the request token and send back to the service provider. Server provider not only to verify the signature, and also need to verify the verifier is the same, is sent to the relying party. So the verifier only going to be sent to the registered redirect URL. That's a security model here. But we can still have our similar validity in 1.0a as well. So this is a vulnerability we found in Evernote. So what we did there is we first of all, similar to a last attack, we get a local stored secret from a relying party using Evernote. And at step 3, we change the callback URL into a callback URL we control. It's like evil redirect URL. And what Evernote did wrong at that time is Evernote didn't check the redirect URL, whether it's matching the one relying party registered, whether it's a legitimate redirect URL. It just redirects the request token and verifier back to what URL is provided. So then the attacker gets a verifier. Attacker also has a secret. It can make legitimate signature out of the request token and verifier and get a legit access token, access users' resources. So how to do it right? We'll talk about what relying party should do. Now store client secret in the mobile application, and for service provider, register the callback or redirect URL and check whether they match the registered one. Okay, we talk about this Oauth 1.0, Oauth 1.0a, and from developer's point of view, what developers should use for Oauth or for authorization. Based on the flow graph, you already seen Oauth 1 is very, very complicated. There are a lot of redirection. They allow developer to know cryptography. So this is now trivial. And the answer to if you want to use Oauth for authorization, the answer is not use Oauth 1. And as we said, there is a very more simplified version came out after Oauth 1, which is Oauth 2.
Oauth 2 solved some problems, but Oauth 2 still had many security vulnerabilities. As we have mentioned, we'll be focusing on the two common flows for Oauth 2.0, which is implicit grant flow and authorization code flow. These two flows are very different. You can just think it as two different versions of Oauth 2.0. So first, let's see how Oauth 2.0 implicit flow works. You can see from the diagram that the implicit flow is much more simplified than the previous protocols. The only critical requirement here is that relying party must supply a redirect URI to get the access tokens. To summarize, there are majorly three differences from previous protocols. First, there's no relying party secret. That's nice. Developers don't have to worry about how can they protect the secret. Second, there's no signature or encryption, so developers don't have to go through the burdens of dealing with this crypto stuff. Third, implicit flow introduced a concept about barrier token, which is that the access token is not bound to a relying party. That is to say, anyone who gets the access token will be able to access users' information on the service provider. You can see that the access token is really important for authorization here. Then here comes the question, how can we handle the redirections? How can we give the access token to the right relying party? In the web world, people are using browser redirections so that they can make sure the receiver of the access token should be the same as the one that registered redirect URI. But how to do the redirection in the mobile space? For example, Android has a scheme called intent URI scheme. So the running party application register this intent. In iOS, they also have a similar scheme called customize scheme. Is this secure? The answer is no. So this is the third vulnerability, because attackers can overwrite the redirect URI in the mobile. For example, in Android, the attacker can just register and overwrite the callback for the intent scheme. So they will be able to get access token. Since the access token is not bound to a special relying party, the attacker will be able to access all the information inside user's account. iOS have the similar problem. The impact is serious. Attacker will have access to all Facebook data without consent. How to do it right? For example, in Android, they are using the signature to do secure redirection. So each application will be signed by the developer key. You can see the code snip is for Android verifying the key hash of the package. Up until several months ago, iOS start doing similar verifications. It's just started this year.
Okay, let's talk about authentication and authorization. So when we talk about auth, like these two concepts always come together, and it's now like sometimes like they get like sometimes they mess up together, like which is what. We already talked about authorization. Let's talk about authentication. Actually, authentication is like a little bit simpler compared to authorization. It's basically who the user is, who you are. So in this case, is the service provider already know who the resource owner or who the user is, and the user want to using his or her existing session and reuse there in the another relying party. So this is the same identity, and the user want to use this identity to use the relying party service or like to store the user's data in the relying party. So you can see the major difference. The major difference over here is where the resources or which service user is using. So in authorization, user allow relying party to access data or resources with user stored in the service provider. But in authentication case, is using want to using a consistent identity and use that to within the relying party services to store like data is belong to the relying party. So if you like when you're using OAuth tool in principle, and if you miss the authentication with authorization, there is a vulnerability. You already talked about X token actually is like not bounded, is like a barrier token. So any party with X token can access users' data with given permissions. So in the step 3, when relying party trying to use X token to get user information from service provider and use that for authentication, step 4 will return back a user ID from the service provider. And relying party can use that user ID as an identifier in their service. So what can go wrong there? So this is an attack breakdown, which we had a demo with for the Wish one. So first, attacker have a malicious application. Bob is using this malicious application. First is authenticate with Facebook. And Facebook think this is legit and return Bob's access token to attacker. Now attacker have a Bob's access token. So what attacker gonna do next is attacker gonna to log in with attacker's account in Facebook from Wish. And Facebook gonna return attacker's access token. Attacker intercept that request, replace attacker's access token into Bob's access token. And Wish gonna ask Facebook using Bob's access token who this user is. Facebook return user Bob's Facebook user ID, and Wish think, okay, this is Bob, and which logging into attacker into Bob's account. So this is something behind the scene. So the first, the one on the left is a response from Facebook. You can see like this is like what scope this requires getting, and also in the at the very bottom you can see the access token. And what Wish actually does is like it gets the access token immediately and using it to call Facebook me endpoint to get user information, and use this response. In the response, you can see the ID, using this ID to identify who the user is in their system. And in the attack case we just described, Wish going to log into the victim's account. So what is the impact? The impact is like attacker can get a full account compromise with the Relay Party app. In the attack we demoed is Wish, but in 2014 we found this vulnerability in a Facebook in-home application, a third-party application, Instagram. So at that time, there is a vulnerability to get full account compromise in Instagram. So you may wonder, like, if I want to do like OAuth or like third-party authentication, how to do it better. So there is a new spec or apps coming out called OpenID Connect. This is something based top on OAuth tool and doing authentication. So beside of access token, the service provider can send back a ID token, which is a signed JSON web token, JWT. And inside the payload, inside the signed payload, you can see there are a lot of attributes. For one, ISS is an issuer, so it's like indicate who is a service provider. The second subject is actually the user ID. The third one, AUD, is audience, which is a Relay Party. It's usually the Relay Party's client ID. And this is like returned within the with same request. System returns with access token. So first of all, everything is signed, so the Relay Party can verify and can guarantee this token is belong to the Relay Party. And also, like, if one request, the Relay Party don't need to make a separate request to know who this user is. And in this payload, we show like in implicit flow, it actually in the very last you can see a AT hash. It actually have a hash of access token to make sure this is the same access token like sent back to the Relay Party. So there is no intercept, there is no forge. So attacker cannot do anything with this ID token. So okay, let's get back to OAuth tool. So we already talked about implicit flow, and there is another authorization code or code flow. So what is different here is in step 2, instead of directly getting back access token to Relay Party, authorization code is sent to the Relay Party. A Relay Party has to use the authorization code and these client credential, include the client ID and the client secret, to retrieve access token. This has to be done from the Relay Party server side because the credential, the secret, need to be stored in the Relay Party server. And then Relay Party can get protected resources with access token. So there are two things need to be mentioned. One is the authorization code have to be one-time password, and it need to be short-lived. And also, the service provider need to verify the authorization code belong to the same Relay Party. If not, there is a vulnerability over there. So this is a vulnerability we found in a very famous China provider, Sina, and the Relay Party we use is called Sohu News. So first of all, Bob using an application which controlled by attacker, and it starts with Sina's OAuth 2 code flow. So Bob's authorization code going to send to the malicious application, and then attacker owns Bob's authorization code. So then attacker using similar to what we had before for the implicit flow, attacker log in Sohu News with attacker's account. Then Sina gonna send back attacker's authorization code. Attacker intercepts the request, change it to Bob's authorization code, and Sohu News gonna send Bob's authorization code to Sina and gets Bob's access token. Now attacker gets full control of Bob's Sohu News account. Yeah, this is basically the same turnout from the implicit flow impersonation attack. So how to do this right? Service provider need to verify all the security critical content, such like authorization code on the server side. And also, relying party need to store and do secure check always on server side.
Okay, we have talked about the attacks which directly associate with the protocol flows. Now let's take a look at the general problems that impact all the different OAuth flows. First, let's get a little bit more about consent page. Consent page is very important because it allows the user to grant permission to the relying party apps. So it is a page that should describe what's the app and who is the user and what kind of information does the app want to access. For example, here are the two examples of modern consent page from service providers like Facebook and Google. So if there's not enough information in the consent page, you can imagine that users might just grant all permissions, like give all the secret data inside the service provider to a relying party. But this attack is trivial. Let's say something more interesting, which is like when there's lack of consent information that could lead us to hacking to the authentication. So here we use the example with Tencent. Tencent is a very big Chinese service provider. You guys might know it from, it's the same provider as WeChat. So it's had over 700 million users over China and overseas. So Tencent doesn't provide any information related to the relying party. So the app, or the user will not know which app they are granting the information to. And also, because app ID is a public information, then attackers can try to trick the user to log into their app, but still seem like a legitimate app. Let's take a look at how this attack could happen. In the first step, on the user device, the user is tricked to log into attacker's mobile app, but the user thinks he's talking to a legitimate app. After user input his Tencent credentials, Tencent will provide an identifier for that user. So the identifier is signed by Tencent, and it includes the app ID and the user ID. So in this step, the malicious application will get the special identifier that is associated to the user's account. Because user will not see any difference, because there's no consent. Let's see how attacker can hack into user's account with this identifier. After getting the identifier that's related to user's account, attacker comes into his own mobile device. And the attacker tries to log in with Tencent. Tencent will return the identifier that's linked to attacker's account. But attacker will substitute the identifier. He will use the identifier that's associated to the user's account that he gets from the first step. And the relying party will think it's the same benign user. So then the attacker can just log into the benign user's account. He will have full control over the benign user's account. This attack had very serious impact. So around over 700 million users are affected, and Tencent acknowledged the vulnerability and patched it within a week. So how can we do it right? As a service provider, you should include username and user profile to let user know that's the user's account who's logged in. And you should also provide clan name and icon to let user know which app is asking for the permissions. Of course, you should tell the user what permissions will be granted. The second general problem is about state token. So you guys might know the CSF token. So inside Oauth, there's also a similar token that's generated randomly by the relying party to ensure the integrity of the Oauth flow session. If you don't use the state token, like we demonstrate in the GitHub demo, that benign user will be logging to attacker's account, which is a standard login CSF attack. So they have two steps. First, attacker login to GitHub account and get authorization code from GitHub. Instead of going on, the attacker sends a phishing link to the user that had embed the authorization code. When the benign user Bob render the link, a request will be sent to GitHub server with the authorization code from attacker's account. Then GitHub will, because there's no state token being used, GitHub will just think it's a benign user. It's an attacker. So the benign user will be logging to the attacker's account. A little bit more detail that first, when attacker starts Oauth flow on his machine, you can see there's no state token being used in this URI. And in the second step, on the user device, when the user triggers into rendering iframe, which contains authorization code from the attacker's account, after that, user will be logged into attacker's account. To do this right, service provider should support state token, and relying parties should pass the state token to the provider and also verify the state token. Our final vulnerability is very dangerous because it allows you to break the authentication of Facebook. It's associated with a feature that's both Android and iOS support. That's WebView, which is a browser that can be bundled inside the mobile app. WebView is very widely used for hybrid apps in development and also for embedding content. For example, for embedding the Oauth login page. WebView is very powerful. It has lots of legitimate use cases. So the app that's embedded WebView can get the cookies from the WebView. There's no enforcement about same origin policy inside WebView. So it's also demonstrated in the demo that we use Facebook as an example to show the attack. First, the developers develop an app and follow exactly the Facebook Oauth flow and develop the Oauth flow inside WebView instead of using Facebook SDK. Then after user login with Facebook, the app can get the cookie from Facebook. And the cookie is a long-term cookie, so the apps can do whatever they want with the cookie, like logging to user's account. This WebView attack has very dangerous consequence that it allows full account compromise. Since WebView has lots of legitimate reasons, legitimate usage for allowing people to get cookies inside WebView, we don't know any fix for this problem now. We have sampled 8 vulnerabilities, but there are actually even more problems. So here comes the 1 million question. How to do mobile Oauth securely? The answer is it is very, very hard. But we don't want to discourage people from using mobile Oauth because it's very widely used and it's so useful. Is there anything we can do? So if you're a service provider, you should remember this checklist. First, you want to verify the identity of the secret information receivers, like the token of the code. Also, you want to provide informative consent page. Third, you should consider using OpenID Connect for authentication. What if you are a relying party? The most important thing to remember is You should never trust the client. Don't store any secret in the client, and you should always perform security checks on the server. You should also choose the right flow and follow spec exactly, and you should use the official SDKs to develop your app. Okay, so this is the end of the talk. We hope you guys learned about mobile OS problems and how to avoid them in the best efforts. Thank you. Okay. Any questions?
Or is it?
Yeah, one thing to mention that all the 8 vulnerabilities we talk about, 7 of them are still working. So it's really lots of pitfalls in this area. Okay.
If you guys just use JSON, if you were to just use JSON web tokens instead, they're always signed. So doesn't that prevent a lot of, these issues with OAuth? Right? Because if you authenticate with, if you're using JSON web tokens for authentication, can't you just verify that it's always, signed by the correct service provider, and then you don't run into these types of issues?
That's OpenID Connect, right? So like in OpenID Connect, the one thing add is ID token, which include is a JWT, which is signed JSON web token, and also as I already said, like it talk who is the issuer, who is a service provider, and who is a subject, the user, and who is the audience, relevant party. So everything is signed with a key from the service provider, and you can in the spec it's it also mentioned there's a discover page, so all the relevant party can go to the service provider's discover page and get the key and verify the payload is correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.